Good morning. You're listening to Drinking Socially, the official Untappd podcast.
Your weekly look into what's happening in the Untappd community and the world of beer. This episode is brought to you by Untappd and the Untappd store. Use coupon code PODCAST to get 20% off your next purchase. Do it! You owe it to yourself. You've earned it. Treat yourself to a t-shirt and a pint glass for less with the coupon code PODCAST at store.untappd.com. And please remember, as always, to like, subscribe, follow us wherever you follow things. Every time you do, I remember to water my plants. So that is something I'll have to do later today. But enough about plants and things that aren't beer. John, what's happening today?
Yeah, good job reminding everyone to water their plants, though. Remember, you can't water them too much. And if you're looking for something more tasty to give your plants, you can start with brown ales. The thought should immediately take you back to some of the best beers you've ever had, but for the last handful of years, brown ales have not been sexy. And that's what Drinking Socially is here to fix. Not the sexy part. I don't think we're really capable of that, but we're hoping we can get you to think about the humble brown with an open mind. There's a lot of brown-colored beers, porters, English milds, which may actually be just a can of Harrison. There's doubles. There's more and more brown-colored beers, but the brown ale term goes back to the 17th century. And then it fell out of favor for a long time, really until Newcastle Brown Ale. And then eventually here in the States, Pete's Wicked Ale started to establish a new kind of brown and gave us the American Brown Ale. And as you may have guessed by now, there's some gray area in the brown ale, but some popular styles include the English Brown Ale, generally about 3.5 to 4.5% ABV, a medium body, but not a lot of hop flavor. Harrison, any commercial examples you can think of for that English brown?
Yeah, Newcastle Brown, as you just mentioned, Southern Pecans Nut Brown, and today's beer, we'll talk about that in a moment, is an English-style brown as well.
And then leaving the English-style browns, you have the American-style brown, a deep copper color, medium roasty, some caramely chocolate flavor, and you'll oftentimes get a little bit of hop flavor and aroma, even though the ABV is going to pretty much mirror their English counterparts. Harrison, any commercial American brown ales you can think of?
Some of my favorites, you have Ellie's from Avery, Old Brown Dog from Smutty Nose, the Brown Note from Against the Grain in South Park.
The Brown Note is one of the most iconic beer cans that lives inside my head. And there are so many more brown-colored beers. Like we said, English Dark Mild, Old Ale, Belgian Double, Belgian Flanders. Harrison, how do we know which brown-colored beers will help us earn this episode's featured badge?
Yes, exactly. If you want to tip your hat and say bravo for brown, you'll have to be kind of specific. So the qualified beers here, you just have to check into 5 different beers with the style American Brown Ale, English Brown Ale, Imperial or Double Brown Ale, Belgian Brown Ale, or Belgian or Brown Ale Other, as well as Brown IPA. I believe that also it does qualify for this badge, which is great. So lots, I mean, again, there's a lot going on there. As John said, lots of different brown ales, but again, porters won't help you. Stouts, none of that. We're looking for more of the, again, American, English, Belgian, and variations of that brown ale. And the description for this badge is dating back to the 17th century. Brown ales come in a number of varieties with malty, nutty characteristics and a smooth finish. It's sure to cure your cravings, which, if I'm craving malty, nutty beer that's brown, it will every time. Speaking of nutty brown beers, John, what are we enjoying today?
Yeah, something that I'm pretty sure this is going to be my first check-in, a beer that I think everybody has seen before. I mean, if you have never seen the label of this beer, I would challenge that you're even a beer drinker. So what Harrison's bringing up on YouTube is Samuel Smith's Nut Brown Ale. It's an English style brown ale at 5%, so it's towards the top of that threshold.
Yeah.
We get 30 IBUs, which is negligible. That's almost undetectable. On Untappd, it rates at a 3.6. And Sam Smith tells us a couple things about this beer. One thing that I thought was cool is that they advertised this as brewed with well water. And
Yes.
I think if you're familiar with well water in the U.S., that tastes like someone lit a match and dumped it in there. But,
Well, yeah, right.
I'm presuming that the wells in the U.K. taste a lot better, and they actually used the original well at the old brewery that was sunk in 1758. It's still in use today, with water being drawn from about 85 feet underground. They use barley, malt, and yeast. Aromatic hops fermented in stone Yorkshire squares. I think Harrison knows a little bit more about those to create a relatively dry ale with a rich, nutty color.
See right through it.
Beech nuts, almonds, and walnuts are used to imply a little bit of that nut dryness I think I usually get when I drink a nut brown. But I'm going to let Harrison describe his first sip while I get ready and pour one myself.
Ooh. And now I'm realizing that the handful of trail mix I had before this may have been a mistake, because there was already the whispers of a former nutty experience, and now I'm jumping into a liquid counterpart. But yeah, I mean, I think the word of the day is going to be nutty, because this is what I'm getting. It's almost like, let's be a little more specific, the kind of almond nut. It's that experience for me. If I had to pick a nut flavor, we're diving deep into the nut world. It's definitely more kind of that almond, kind of right dry. There's a little bit of that like tanniny action going on there, but not much. It's actually very smooth and very soft on the palate. I mean, they kind of pride themselves, Sam Smith does, in not like adding adjuncts and goofy stuff to their beer and overcarbing things. So this definitely had an awesome head to it, and yeah, grabs me with a kind of a punchy little almond that just finishes smooth. What's happening over there, John? What's going on?
Ooh. The first sip that I took just immediately made me think of brownies. And then I thought of the British baking show, because this is a British beer, and I'm thinking of brownies. And I'm wondering, I'm not even thinking about the beer after the first sip. I'm just thinking about all the beautiful confections I would cook with this. And that's a terrible first sip review. But if you've heard me do this before, then you know that's usually what you get. And in this case, the first sip of this beer, I'm just thinking of like chocolate fudgy cakes. It's light, it's soft, as Harrison alluded to. It's not heavy, fudgy chocolate cakes like you would get in a pastry or imperial stout. No. Like a chocolate cake lager. This is not a lager, but the
that's what I
lightness
thought
of
too.
that carries through.
Yeah, it's the lightness and the smoothness of it. I almost said exactly like an almond lager, which may exist but doesn't, or like a chocolate covered almond. But again, it's not
Is almond your favorite nut, or is this just stuck in there because of the Sam Smith?
I mean, it's currently my favorite nut. Butter. There's a lot of almonds in this house. There's a lot of almonds. I like to think I personally helped drive the price of almond butter from like $7 a jar to a more manageable $5 myself, just by buying it en masse. So I think my kids have never had peanut butter. They've always had almond butter. We call it peanut butter. That'll be a discussion later in life. I'm sure I've made a mistake there.
Yeah, rough college years.
That's right. Yeah. A lot of eyes opening up. But that's okay. It's all part of the experience. But yeah, so yeah, I agree with you, John. There's the smoothness has a lagered kind of quality to it. And not for nothing, those like the Stone Yorkshire Squares you were talking about, these flat bottom stone fermenters, that is kind of their hallmark and their claim to fame is adding, kind of a more smooth flavor to the beer than, well, if it was stored in oak, something like that. Today, you're obviously most breweries using stainless steel fermenters, but when Sam Smith started, it was oak or these Yorkshire Squares. So definitely really cool too to know that these guys were in many ways kind of pioneering on the technological side of brewing when no one's really doing that. Hundreds of years ago.
Yeah, quite a while ago from their description here. And another thing I love about like old brewery, old well, old stone Yorkshire Squares. But one thing I thought that was really forward thinking that I don't see a lot of. I mean, I'm a type 1 diabetic, so the amount of sugar I ingest is an important mathematical calculation that I have to make. Right. And beer often makes that difficult to assume. On Sam Smith's website, they list there's 182 calories, there's 3.7 carbohydrates, there's half a gram of protein if you're hitting the gym afterwards. This would give you that pump that you're looking for. But I thought it was really cool that they provide like a nutritional data sheet for their beer, which is something I don't see a lot of. I don't want to see it on an Imperial Stout.
You don't want to know, right? This is 5 cheeseburgers, right, or 10,000 calories. Yeah, you don't want to know. It'll make it worse. Just keep that information buried in the sand. But you're right. It is cool to look at this stuff and kind of wonder or have those questions answered. Good call on that, John. But this is tasty, man. It's smooth. It's one of those beers where I could have like 9 of them by a fire one night and be like, that was the best night of my life. It's a little hot for fires.
Nine beers will produce a pretty good night during the night.
It.
Maybe the next day will be rough.
You pay for it eventually. No free lunches out there anymore. Oh my gosh.
It's getting in on that time of year though, where campfires and beers, well, it might be getting a little bit too hot depending on where everyone lives, or I mean, if you're in Australia, it's actually coming up on the winter, so never mind. Forget everything I just said. But campfires are still fun, and drinking beer at them is almost a mandate, I think it should be.
Yep. Yeah, I think they just pop out of the ground when someone lights a fire. So it's like a bat signal or someone just emerges out of the woods saying, I saw your fire, I have a case of beer, and now you have a friend and a bunch of beer. Oh, man, that's how it used to be, I guess, I imagine.
What about the badge we're featuring on this episode, Bravo for Brown? Now, in the last couple of years, it's been a very much IPAs, anything. Like new styles of IPAs have become more popular than 300-year-old brown ales.
Correct.
Sour IPA crushes. Brown ale, how's it doing on Untappd? Does it exist? Do people know about it?
It does. It's, we talk about lagers a lot here. It is the year of the lager, after all, and it will be forever until everyone gets on the same page as us, at least. But there's something to be said for kind of brown ales also being that sneaky kind of go-to beer that checks, as we just kind of mentioned, a lot of the same boxes a lager does. So it's been kind of an everyday drinker that's, all right, not overpowering, not crazy alcohol. It's got some great flavor. Again, a lot of the same things that are attractive to a lager, and as such, actually the unlocks are pretty great for this badge, considering this style is almost seen as like a dad beer, an old guy beer, whatever. There have been more than 614,000 unlocks of it already, which is great. It's fantastic. So keep it up, guys. And looking at the top beers here, no surprise, number 1 is Newcastle's Brown Ale. Which I've shared my stories about. Kind of one of my first non-macro beer experiences was that beer, one of my dad's favorites. But you also have Hazelnut Brown Nectar from Rogue, which is one that a lot, again,
that's a great beer.
For a while. Yeah. And then Indian Brown Ale, which was Dogfish Head's kind of like hoppy brown ale. Then it was a brown IPA. It was a black IPA for a hot minute. Now it doesn't really exist except at the brew pub. So that was one of my favorite beers back when when I was discovering, again, kind of what's not a macro. Ooh, Newcastle Brown Ale. Ooh, this is like Newcastle Brown Ale, but with hops, and more exciting. So I'm glad that's on this list and cracks the top 5. And then you see a lot of beers that I would call, I don't know if you're kind of a classic American brown ales. Maduro from Cigar City, Bill's Best Brown, which is always a fun part of the fall, when that comes back out. Moose Drool Brown Ale from Big Sky, which is like, one of those, got a local legend to it. If you know, you know. So just a lot of great beers in here, a lot of memories for me. It's a cool style. It's really approachable. It's a reason it's been around for a long time. And it's got more than 600,000 unlocks on Untappd. It may not be the most exciting thing on the menu, but it's like a people pleaser, I think. If you like stouts, great. You're not going to hate this. Enjoy a couple of them and be on your way. But how are we doing? Enough about everyone else. Good for you. Who cares? What about us? So, John, I'll let you start. What level are you at right now on the Bravo for Brown? How you doing on this badge?
Every time I answer this question, I say not as far along as I think or would like to be, but it's hard picking. It's hard excelling at all. It's hard drinking beer. All right, cut that out. I'm for Bravo for Brown. I'm at a level 8. My most recent unlock comes from a North Carolina brown ale that I am endeared to, Lone Rider Brewing's Sweet Josie. That was years after discovering brown ales. That was like I just strayed away from them. I met Sweet Josie and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yep.
And then also some of my very favorite beers. Saranac's Disruption is a brown ale. Abita does a beer called Turbo Dog and a few other variants from Abita's Dog series that I love. And I also enjoy eating brown ales. I think if you're making a chili, a brown ale is a good substitute, as well as I've mentioned multiple times, brownies.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, brown ales, not just for drinking. I'm level 8, Harrison, and I don't think you're going to touch me on this one. You don't talk about brown ales. You don't hate on them, but they seem a little bit pedestrian. They seem a little bit, I don't know, they seem a little bit caramely for your palate.
And maybe that's it. You're right. If there was ever a observation I've made of some American brown ales, is they are kind of more on the caramely side, and I'm quicker to jump to a porter when looking for a stout alternative than like anything else. You're right. And not to make excuses, that is probably why I'm only sitting at a level 3 on this badge.
That's not that bad.
I'm one away from level 4, so tonight will get me there, which is cool. But most recently, I had Lazy Bird Brown from Birdsong, which was awesome. Remember that. And my first one actually was Southern Pecan from Lazy Magnolia, which is the 9th most checked-in beer for this badge. So I'm right there with one of those almost 5,000 people that also use that beer to unlock the badge first. But looking through my list, we've got Maduro Brown on there, Ellie's Brown, some of the ones we talked about already tonight, India Brown, of course, from Dogfish Head. And one of my other really favorite brown ales was a similar take on the brown ale, like Dogfish Head did, adding more hops, was Hash Brown from Sweetwater Brewing, where they did like a hoppy brown ale, and it was like a hoppy chocolate cake. It was amazing. I remember the first time I had it. I can look back at the check-in, but I remember drinking it and going like, "Whoa, this is like it was surprising." I saw brown ale. Most of them were caramely and brown. Oh, this one's hoppy. Kind of tastes like a goofy IPA. I'll have another pint. So they don't make it anymore, unfortunately, but it was one of those beers that I remember enjoying the first time, and it was fun to look back on that. Recently, though, Edmund's Oast Comfy Arm Chair Brown Ale. It's an English style. I grabbed, it's only 4.7% that I remember I grabbed one back in December. of 2 years ago, I guess, according to the check-in. I remember going back and getting like another 4-pack. So I was like, this is fantastic. It's exactly what I want. It was almost touching that porter territory, actually, which to your point in the intro, like brown ales, there are a lot of beer styles that have like a range to them. I'd argue all do. But brown ale is that one where it can like almost be like an amber lager and almost be a porter and anything in between. And then you can also add hops and really throw people for a loop. So it's a cool style. And for a while there, a lot of breweries like Sweetwater, like Dogfish Head, were exploring what else can we do with this like really, open palette here and came out with some pretty cool stuff. Even New Belgium did their chocolate chip. I had that in here too. Like they did like a chocolate chip.
The Ben and Jerry?
Chocolate chip cookie dough with, Ben and Jerry partnership was a brown ale. And that beer was wild.
I forgot all about that. One of the brown ales, is when I was looking through, this is going back years ago, Sierra Nevada did a beer camp, and I think it was either Sierra Nevada or it was Devil's Backbone, and they did a something like a beer camp 12 pack, and they did a collaboration with Wicked Weed. At the time, Wicked Weed was a rising, shining star, and you couldn't get them in Eastern North Carolina. So I had it. I'm probably butchering all of this, but anyways, the beer was called Risen, and it was an Imperial brown with coffee, and that's one of the best beers. I went and bought a whole nother 12-pack just to get one of those extra bottles and save it for a while. That beer was amazing.
I love it. I think there's a very similar beer that Port Brewing makes called Dawn Patrol, which is, like a surfing term, getting up early and surfing, and it's like a coffee brown ale. So we don't see port out here either, but I remember having that and going, again, whoa, this is a brown ale? It kind of tasted like a lighter coffee stout. So it's a cool style. It really is, sure, you can make it traditional like what we're having tonight, but I don't know. I wouldn't always expect that when cracking open something that says brown ale. Maybe you'll be surprised.
Yep. And I guess if there's any takeaways, when you're ordering a beer and you're unsure what you want to get, or if you're open to try something, you see just a brown ale up there, and maybe you order it and you drink it and you're like, this isn't too bad, but dig a little deeper, look at it on Untappd. Is it an English style brown or an American style brown or one of the multiple different styles of brown? So that you'll be more aware, right? If you drink an English style brown versus an American, there's going to be some subtle differences in there, which almost make them two different. I mean, it does make them two different beers. Never mind.
You're right, John. And speaking of ordering beers, I think we have a pretty cool verified venue of the week you're going to tell us about, where we can order tons of beer from if we're lucky enough to be where Alan is and enjoying some beverages at this spot. Where are we going today for the verified venue, John?
Yeah, Harrison's talking about Alan, who's part of the Drinkin' Socially Facebook group, and that's where I learned about Cascadia Tap House in Portland, Oregon. Beautiful name. Cascadia makes me think of Cascade hops and being in a Final Fantasy game. And they're located out in Portland, Oregon. And we chose to feature this verified venue just because Alan has drank so much beers there that he maxed out Cascadia's local badge. You get a badge just for checking into any of the beers while you're at Cascadia. And Alan, like I said, has done this so many times. He hit level 100. He took a picture with someone at the bar and posted it in the Facebook group along with his maxing out of that badge. And we thought that was pretty cool, so we checked them out. And obviously, they're on Untappd. You can see their whole beer menu on Untappd. They just did a really cool Father's Day kind of 4-pack takeaway where they had a couple of different cans of beer for Dad. If you're unsure what to get him, beer's usually pretty good. They do soccer games. Obviously, they have a lot of beer. There's wine if you don't like beer, but if that's the case, you're probably not listening to me right now. And trivia nights, which are pretty fun as well. So it seems like they're kind of getting a little bit busier over there at Cascadia with some actual events they've been hosting. And they were We just missed their Father's Day event. Harrison, you're a father, and so happy belated Father's Day. Thank early you, Father's Day. Belated Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day. Yeah, that.
Now I'm just practicing for when I talk to my dad.
That's right.
Did you guys do anything?
Yeah, it was
do you guys do anything cool for Father's Day over there?
Yeah, it's always kind of crazy on the weekend, but got to the beach and hung out, relaxed, didn't have to help make dinner or anything, just enjoyed dinner out. So it was a perfect day of just relaxing and napping and not thinking about much. So that's all I can ask for of any day, but nice that it happened on Father's Day. And of course got to enjoy a few beers that evening, which is solid way to end any day. So it was a good one. Happy Father's Day to all the other dads out there. Hope you got to take a nap somewhere and drink something cold and delicious. And quick correction for myself earlier, if you were yelling at the radio or the screen or whatever when I said Dawn Patrol was an Imperial Brown Ale from Port Brewing board meeting is what I meant. That's their Imperial Brown Ale with coffee. Thing. Exactly, it's a bit even better joke, but they do make a beer called Dawn Patrol, which is a dark English mild. So also another brown beer. So lots of good brown beer things happening there. But let's talk about other beers, like ones we've had recently. In fact, this past week. So, John, I'll ask you first. What was your best beer of the week? What did you enjoy?
Yep, easily the one I'm still thinking of comes from Holmes Brewing out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. That was a serendipitous find, but the beer I drank from them was called Deep Depths. And it's hard to say now that I say it out loud. But anyways, Deep Depths. They make a couple different versions. This was prickly pear, lemongrass, raspberry, mango, and plum. So it would be a good salad or a really expensive jam, which probably pairs well with your almond butters for exquisite PB&Js. But this, I doubt anyone's going to be able to find this beer, but Holmes Brewing's amazing. When I used to get beers from Tavour when I was allowed to, I would get a couple from them. Their tap list, if you are fortunate enough to live or be able to visit Ann Arbor, their tap list is on Untappd. They got over 1,500 check-ins in their tap room just this month. Holmes Brewing, rocking, and that beer was amazing. What about you, Harrison?
Yeah, for me, it is the year of the lager after all, so I kept that train going and enjoyed Alpino or Alpino. Maybe that makes more sense, which is a strong lager from Oxbow Brewing in Maine, who we've had on the show before. But basically, it was like a 6.5% kind of. They didn't peg it in any kind of specific category. They just called it a strong lager, but it kind of tasted like a hopped up, like a grassy Maibach, which I loved, and it was really complex. Like the malt notes alone, there was biscuit in there, there was cracker, there was like rye bread and sourdough and pumpernickel. It was like a lot of really cool malt notes, and I remember I just took my time with it, just kind of sat down at the end of a long day and drink it slower than maybe I would normally drink a lager, because there's a lot going on, and they do such a great job of their lager program's amazing, and the beers they make are just so good. And as I've said many times before on this show, I'm always impressed when someone can like wow me with something that has like 2 malts and 1 hop, and that's it, and it's gonna blow you away. You can just tell the care they take in each beer. So that was really cool to enjoy that. And it was kind of like one of those, I think they actually labeled it as like a dry hop strong lager, and I was like, all right, that's interesting for a couple reasons. Let me take a look, and happy I did. So Alpino from Oxbow. Impressive stuff.
Bless you. I think that's the first sneeze that we've had on the air.
I think it is. I couldn't get to the mute button. Couldn't get to the mute button fast enough. Couldn't find the mute. Oh, sweet Lord. I feel better now. All right. Good stuff from us again. Sneezes aside. But thank you guys for joining us as we took a bow and said, bravo, Brown, or gave it a round of applause. We remember that old chestnut from a lot of nut talk tonight. And remember to follow us online, all those places that you follow things. But John, what's happening next week? We're doing something a little bit different. It's like you have too much away. What's happening? Yeah, what's going down?
Next week going shark hunting, I think. No, not that type of shark hunting.
Okay.
Probably not, but officially the start of summer, so you can probably find us out at the beach or maybe even at the harbor or in the belly of a very large shark. Until then,
That's right. Cheers!
cheers.